Hey guys, it's Brad and Jeanie from Eat, Play, Poo. Welcome. You've joined us in a very special webinar, episode 4. We've got a very special guest, Racheal Lee from Thrive Natural Health. Racheal's a naturopath, very experienced, and we're talking about one of her favourite topics today, which is bloating. So hopefully we unlock some of the mysteries about bloating and get a deep dive into some of the causes of it, etc. So
get to the guts of it.
Get to the guts of it. Yeah. So Jeanie, bloating's quite common, isn't it? So we've all had some sort of bloating.
Massively, yeah. Everyone. I mean, bloating impacts most people every day to a greater or lesser degree, and it might be a tiny bit of bloating that you don't even notice, or it might be severely debilitating, horrible bloating that you just, it's horrible.
So before we get into the interview with Racheal, I've got a very fun fact, and I don't know, we've got a number of attendees joining us now. So guys, as you join, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So feel free at any time to answer your questions. And if we haven't answered that throughout the interview, we'll have a Q&A at the end. Also, if you have to jump off the webinar for any reason, if it gets a bit lengthy or you have to go, you will be able to watch this on demand a little bit later. So my fun fact is around beer, and I didn't realise that men often talk about the perfect pour or the perfect pot of beer or the perfect head of beer. And when you're trying to reduce the foam levels on the beer, the CO2 gas is actually locked into the beer, so therefore released into the stomach. So it's actually not a bad idea to do a fast pour, tilted vigorously, let that all foam up, and then let that settle back into beer. So the boys there, so there's independent research done that the way you pour your beer is going to affect whether or not you're bloated or not.
Bloat factor.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of our team members here early, and I said, "Do you get bloated with beer?" And he goes, "No, I actually pour it properly." So it made me research about the perfect. But without further ado, let's get our expert Racheal. Hello, Racheal, you there?
Hello guys, how are you?
Really good, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Seems to be quite a hot topic. We've got lots of attendees, a lot of people registered, and we've got some email questions and all that sort of stuff. But before we do, tell us a little bit about, I guess, your journey in gut health and how Thrive come about. Your experience, your backstory.
Yeah, thank you. I always had a passion for health. I always thought, as a child, looking up at the moon, thinking, we're all so connected with the earth and Mother Nature. Always had so much fascination with herbs. And, when I was old enough, I went to uni and finally studied a Bachelor of Health Science at Endeavour in Brisbane. It's quite a well-known place for naturopaths. And the lecturers always said, look, you'll find your calling when you go out and practice. And it's taken me a couple of years to find gut health as my calling, because I found that anyone that comes in to see me, whether it be acne, cardiovascular problems, stress, I've always honed into the gut, and it's always fixed it. So I'm like, right, if anyone comes in, I'm just going to treat the gut. So I sort of fell into gut health, but then again, it's so hard not to treat the gut because it is the root cause of everything. So that's sort of my backstory, and I've just sort of embraced the gut openly, and I just love talking about it so much because it really does connect everybody as well. We all experience bloating, so I think that's why it's such a popular topic to talk about, because we've always had bloating since a young baby, basically. So yeah.
Well, it is your favourite topic. I see in the notes here. It's why is it a favourite topic, bloating, of yours?
I guess because it's quite taboo. Like poo and farting is a little bit taboo, and so is burping. It's sort of like, oh, I've done a burp or a poo, but it's something that I think that we should start talking about, because the way you poo, the burping, the farting, it's all signs about what's happening inside. There's signs and symptoms, and if we start to listen to the body, we can understand, oh, maybe I was a little bit stressed when I ate that food, that's why I was bloating, or maybe I ate that too quickly, or maybe that broccoli or something random really reacted to my guts. because all of this, it might be a bit taboo, but it's actually your body's way of talking and communicating to you that, hey, something's not going right, or something could be a little bit better in your life. So that's why I like talking about it.
Cool. Well, let's get right into the topic, I guess. I guess there's a lot of different types of bloating, isn't there? Can we go through some of those, types? The most common one for me is food, but, sort of bloating after I eat. But,
and you hit it on the spot. Timing is really important. So anybody that comes in, I would always say, okay, when do you bloat? The timing's important because it can actually tell us whereabouts in the gut you need support. So for example, if someone comes in and says, look, I'm bloating straight after meals, then we're looking at, okay, if it's, within that 10, 20 minutes, we know it's still in the stomach, basically. So we're looking at, do you have enough hydrochloric acid to be breaking down the foods that you're eating? Or are you simply drinking cold water around meals? Because I see this a lot, particularly in Queensland, because it's so hot. We're eating and then we're like, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock. I haven't had anything to drink. Better grab a big drink of water. And I see this a lot with men out in the work, builders and things like that. Because we got to think of our stomach as a hot pot. We want it to be boiling nice and hot. So when we go and have a big meal like lunch, imagine, putting water on the fire. And it's just going to sit there. That's when we start to get that real indigestion, and we can start to get bloating or burping quickly. So it's really important to see, all right, is it in that first 5 to 20 minutes? Other people get it. This is the main one is, when they say, look, I wake up with a flat belly and I go to bed with, being really bloated. And that usually happens around 60 minutes after meals. And we know that it's made its way out of the stomach and it's made its way down to more of the, I guess, smaller intestines, but mostly large intestines. And that's where your gut bacteria is. So that's a whole nother ball game we're playing with is gut bacteria, which Jeanie, I spoke to her the other day about it. And there's just so much more about gut bacteria that we are still learning about. But that just indicates whereabouts we need the support. Do we need hydrochloric acid or do we need to look at your gut bacteria? So timing's really, really important.
Yeah, good. And there's also, I guess, one of the more common ones, well, the only, just that concerns women is around menstrual cycles or menstrual bloating.
Yes. This is called the Biome, and not many GPs that I know of, or any, most scientists aren't really on top of this at the moment, but listen out for it. It's called the Biome, and it's heavily with estrogen and your monthly cycle, because, get this, there is a whole section in your gut that is cycles, toxins, estrogen, so synthetic hormones, and they basically go through the liver glucuronidation pathway. They get bound to calcium D-glucarate. Big words, it just basically binds and it goes out of your poo. But there's gut bacteria that's in the gut. They go like this. They break the bind of your toxins, estrogen. It goes around again and again and again. So this doesn't just affect women, it also affects men, because this is very important to get out the toxins, strip them all out, and we're all exposed to these xenoestrogens out in the environment. So every month, a woman's hormones, as we know, estrogen will rise and then it will drop down when she ovulates. And if there's girls that come in and go, oh, I always get bloated around my period, then, or around my ovulation, I know it's got to do more of the estrobiome. And it's pretty interesting, because there's a lot of women, they'll start to be like, oh yeah, I do. There's like a cycle with the bloating. So it's quite interesting with that particular one.
Yeah, so okay, then the other one was nervous bloating. That's really interesting for me. So that's something like the whole brain gut connection, maybe.
Absolutely. This is probably, I get, this is my bloating that I would get. And it's pretty much a majority, about 80% of my patients can relate to this one, because when you are stressed and you're in that sympathetic nervous system, your body is basically, all the blood that rushes to your gut goes to your peripheral, so we can run, we can think, we can look, to the horizon. And we're not thinking about, oh, we need to digest and assimilate and, you know, get all the food going and munching and turning. So today the stress is, you know, my boss calling, or my bill needs to be paid, or my partner needs to know what he's going to eat for dinner. So there's this constant stress. So the body's just not getting that blood flow to the gut. And this is the thing, is that when we're working, I can see it, so many of my patients are like, oh yeah, I'm on the computer. There's no time to chill out and have lunch. And it's funny because they try to do, have you heard of siesta time in Spain? I love Spain. And they're huge on going home,
My son would
eating.
love Spain.
And they go home and then they sleep. You know, they get into that parasympathetic nervous system. And most of them, they don't get the bloating or anything like that because they have that time to digest the food. They try to bring that here in Australia in a research, but they couldn't. The Australians were like, oh, you're telling me that I have to chill out? I can't chill out and eat my food. My boss needs me, or I need to do this. So the actual Australian, just our Western society, we don't know how to chill out around lunchtime. And you know, that can fold out to the dinner and, you know, things like that. So we're just not getting the messages to say, hey, let's chill out. Let's focus now on digesting the food and breaking down the protein. Yeah, so that's where that nervous system comes from into play.
That's really interesting. You hear a lot of, I've heard many times over, a lot of Eastern cultures, you know, that do rest after, you know, in work times, but also a lot more common now is corporates, like big corporates. Like I think if you go and work for Microsoft or Apple or whatever, it's just like this cool, fun space. You can go hop in a beanbag. You can just take time out. And these guys are very, you know, I guess, proficient. They're excellent companies.
Putting a lot of research into efficiency, and they recognise it's important to honour their body's natural cycles of activity versus, you know, like the rest and digest phase versus the let's hurry up and do stuff, the activity, and then the repair phase.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think when we come to realise, like, it's not about how much time we spend on a project, but it's about being present and about being able to show up. And if you're not in that creative zone, if you're still in that sympathetic zone, you can't think properly. Your brain's everywhere, and you can't obtain new information either. There's so much crazy stuff that go on.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and I guess there's a lot of people tuning in, you know, to this episode because they do have bloating. So, what's the procedure? What are some of the steps that we go about to reduce bloating and stuff like that? I guess that one of the first things is, like you mentioned at the onset, is identify where it's happening. Yeah.
Well, you know, then let's go real back to basics, where it starts right from the top, and then we'll work our way down the bottom regardless. And everyone, I know my nieces and nephews, I'm like, where's your stomach? Where's your gut? And they always point down here. And I got me thinking, like, actually, your digestion should start here, because back our ancestors would see the food, they will smell the food, then your sebaceous glands will like secrete, you know, saliva, and then that's where our digestion starts, really. So we want to get connected with the foods, really the first basic point. So get meal preps and things like that. But what you want to do is really support hydrochloric acid. If we can get this guy really acidic, then we know that you're going to break down your food the best it can. And you want your gut acidic, because I know there's this alkaline, acidic sort of thing that it's been going around for years and years, but your gut wants to be acidic. It's got like a pH of 1. It's the most acidic substance on the planet. Because if you go and eat a piece of meat and it's got a little bit of bacteria on there, you don't want that bacteria to get in. You want something so bloody acidic that it's going to nuke everything. So working on increasing your hydrochloric acid is really the first place to start. I love apple cider vinegar. My grandma used to have this, you know, she's from Germany and she's got all the old traditions, but something bitter to get in there, and because your receptors on your tongue will then go, hey, you've got bitter foods coming in. We need heaps of hydrochloric acid. So apple cider vinegar, 15 minutes before meals is fantastic. Super, super cheap as well. It's like, you know, $5 a bottle. But then you look at different cultures where they have bitter salads and they have like bitter teas. Dandelion root tea coming into winter is beautiful as well. So it's really increasing the bitter notes before you start eating as well.
I guess that's super hard, especially for mums and kids when it comes to kids, because generally bitter's not something that kids...
It's something that, yeah, most of us have really neglected. We've pushed it to the side. We've kind of gone, don't like the bitter, just give me more sweet stuff. And yeah, it can be difficult with kids, but it's all about, you know, perseverance and small quantities. And kids usually don't have such an issue with the hydrochloric acid. It's more as you get older, that's what I find, because your hydrochloric acid does tend to decrease with things like stress and getting older. Yeah. Kids, not so much. Like the hydrochloric acid's not the biggest issue, I don't find. Is that what your experience has been as well?
With kids, they're pretty good. And because kids, when you're young, you have these sweet notes. That's why kids love breast milk. Like breast milk's really, really sweet. So naturally, kids want sugar, or they crave the sweeter notes. So when you go and give them something bitter, like good veggies, they actually like, oh my God, Mum's trying to poison me. Why would you do that? So mentally, they're a little bit scared and worried because they don't have the bitter receptors on your tongue tells you, hey, this is poison, because all poisons and toxins in our environment are bitter. And they're thinking, Mum's trying to poison me, and there's green food. What do? Mum's, got this big, airplane coming in my mouth, and she's trying to feed me poison. So that's why perseverance really is key, because it teaches them like, okay, Mum's, she's actually got a good airplane. It's going to give me energy. But yeah, kids are usually got really good hydrochloric acid, but it's just about getting it fun for them, putting on a little chef hat so they can think that they're making their food, and getting them in that sort of, parasympathetic nervous system where they can digest the food properly.
So, okay, let's say that I have my apple cider vinegar 15 minutes before, and I eat a lot of bitter greens, and I know that I'm eating and I'm preparing it mentally for it, and I'm still getting some bloating. What's the next sort of thing? Is it maybe types of food that I'm eating might be causing some issues?
Could even be food. So FODMAPs is huge here. So if we're nailing all this, then we're like, okay, what is there particular carbohydrates that are feeding your gut bacteria? And this is, so usually you'd find this, an hour after foods, or you're going to bed, extremely bloated. So definitely looking into food and tolerances here. Big major signs is really inflamed gut, because then we can be looking at leaky gut, and you really want to go get that sort of tested. But I really start with FODMAPs. FODMAPs is incredible for the gut, because once we change the food that we're feeding the gut bacteria, because we're feeding them first, before you get any of it, they're going to eat that first. So if you're getting bloating, let's look into FODMAPs. And I've seen FODMAPs work so well. There's a lot of research around it. FODMAPs is incredible.
We did a previous episode, I think it was episode 3 with Marina on FODMAPs. That was a good episode if you guys want to go back and refer to that.
Marina from the Monash.
All right, so I'm not stressed. I'm chilled. I'm chilled. I'm having my apple cider vinegar, my bitter greens. I'm looking at what I'm going to eat, and I'm having a low FODMAP smoothie that I'm downing, and I'm still getting bloated. Is because I'm not chewing my food?
Did you exercise in the morning? I'm a huge believer in you can't have healthy digestion unless you're moving. We're so sedentary, and it's like all the way through, the history of any living thing. You've got to have that physical movement to go and get something to eat. We don't do that anymore, which is like, because we've developed all these systems around food, being right there in front of us without us needing to do anything active to go and get some food. You've got to move.
All right, so I've done a run in the morning. I've got that going, but maybe, I'm having a smoothie in the morning, and I know part of digestion is chewing, and there's all these smoothie and post-workout drink diets, and they're just downing them straight into the belly.
Yeah.
Is chewing important?
Yeah, absolutely. It gets that peristalsis going. There's also a really important nerve called your vagus nerve as well, and it's triggered by chewing. And if you're not chewing your food, they're big particles, and your gut's like, I've never seen this big particle in my entire life, and it can really create inflammation and bloating. But you need to start chewing your food. In fact, I get most of my patients, pretty much all of them that fail at doing the mindful eating, to get them on a chew challenge. And it's so simple. They have to chew their food till it's liquid, and I mean like liquid form, and then they have to swallow. Then they have to go like this, either at a friend or to themselves, and then they just start again. And they have to do that with every bite, breakfast, lunch, tea, and snacks. And their jaws hurt.
I reckon I would lose kilos because that would be so good.
Yeah. But these are people that are literally just cannot mindfully eat. So fine, let's just get you to really break down that food. So when your gut gets it, they're like, good, I got that vitamin there, I got that mineral there, instead of like, I don't know what to do with this big particle here. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm generally a fast eater, and sometimes, and men might be able to relate with me, super hungry, just need it to calm the belly down because it's screaming at me. And often, it's hangry.
Hangry.
Yeah. And then I do find burping is one of the things that I'll do, and I might get a bit of indigestion or something like this. I guess there's bloating going on, and then maybe even some farting going on. So yeah, I guess that all makes sense what you're saying. You know, be mindful and chew, and don't just throw it down there, because I guess there's a whole lot of things happening.
One thing depends on the chain reaction. If you're not getting the first part right, then you set yourself up for failure further down as well.
Yeah, so interesting.
Absolutely.
The chew challenge, I like it. Yeah, I think I've heard people refer to, you know, obviously different smoothie diets and stuff have been great for people with weight loss and all that sort of stuff, but maybe munch on a carrot stick just before you're down the smoothie or something like that.
Smoothie bowls is a good way as well. So you can pour the smoothie into a bowl, put something crunchy on top.
Start eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. So look, I guess a couple of things that I wanted to clarify, just to go off topic just a little bit. Well, it's not really, it's you know, if I'm bloated, does that mean there's a lot of gas in my belly? Or if I'm bloated, does that mean my body's inflamed? Or are they the same?
I think people get bloating mixed up. I think often you'll hear someone say, I'm really bloated, but like, to me, the definition of bloating does kind of imply that there is gas, the true definition, but some people might feel tenderness, they might feel swelling, they might feel, you know, a bit of weight gain or extra flab as bloating. So bloating, I think a lot of people kind of misdiagnose themselves as being bloated when it might be something else. But I think true definition is...
And I always ask, like, well, what relieves it? Do you fart to relieve it? And if they say yes, is it smelly? You know, is there some sort of fermentation going on? Or is it just gas? You know, or is it literally really painful to touch? Because that's inflammation. Because we use bloating so often for just, my belly feels really sore. That's what bloating is to many people. Because kids, we teach kids that, like, oh, is your belly bloated? Is it sore? So they just have that mindset, you know, sore tummy, but we got to dive deeper into it. That's why we got to listen to the body and know what to ask it.
Yeah, okay. So look, I'm now this perfect, I've been well researched, and everything you're telling me now, I do, and I'm mindful, and I still get bloated. And I guess, Jeanie, you know, the world of the microbiota and how it's involved and all that sort of stuff. Is there something else that may need to consider, or I need to deep dive into with a specialist or something like that when it comes to the bacteria?
Yeah, I think a lot of the bloating comes down to what's happening with your gut microbes, and what's happening with your gut microbes is impacted by all these other things as well, like chewing, like not exercising or being too sedentary. Medications or chemicals in the environment will impact your gut microbes as well. The foods that you eat directly impact that. Basically has a lot to do with what microbes are growing in you, is what you're constantly throwing down there for them to eat. So yeah, FODMAPs are a big one. Obviously with FODMAPs, that's just all your really rapidly fermentable carbohydrates, and that's just feeding these gut bugs, causing lots of gas production in sensitive people. It's good to have an awareness of FODMAPs, even if you don't have IBS. FODMAPs can affect lots of people to a lesser degree and cause bloating as well. So for me, I know if I eat, you know, maybe too many apples or too many, too much cauliflower or something, I can notice a difference. Or if I have a piece of chewing gum with some artificial sweeteners, or a protein bar with artificial sweeteners, a lot of those things will impact people that don't have IBS just to a small degree. So FODMAPs and bloating, you've got to know all about the FODMAPs that's a big factor with the microbes.
Yeah, Rachel, what about things like, gluten intolerances? And, we did touch on food intolerances, but a little bit more specific in what are you finding people are just, they're eating loads of bread, or there's a link to gluten, because I think I've read or heard a lot that, undiagnosed sort of celiac disease or gluten intolerances does cause a lot of bloating.
Yeah, absolutely. Gluten's probably one of the main ones. And I know I hear this a lot, like, oh, naturopaths always take you off gluten and dairy. But these are two main, they're really linked to inflammation. One, gluten breaks down to 2 different peptides, but gliadin's the main one. And that goes in the gut wall and it tickles it. And that creates this enzyme called zonulin to come out. And instead of having a good gut like this, it starts to go like this. And it's over time, like Jeanie was saying, have too much apples, right? So there's that intolerance. You hit that intolerance, now your gut can't handle it. So you're starting to get leaky gut. So, it's not just breads, it's the amount that we're having. And with dairy, that's specifically linked, that increases your IGF-1, which is your insulin glucose-like factor, highly linked to inflammation. All my girls that come to me with acne, I treat a lot of acne, get them off dairy. And usually my go-to is to come off dairy and gluten for 3 months. If nothing's changed, then, add it back into your life. But usually I see huge differences with bloating, gassy, acne, energy. Energy's huge. When we take these things out, you start to rebuild the gut, you feel better, then we can add them back in. But generally, there's just that we've hit that intolerance, we're just getting too much, and we need to sort of give your gut a bit of a rest.
And that can happen when I speak to a lot of women, or women and men actually, who get to a certain age and they're like, I used to be fine with all these foods, and now they seem to set me off. I didn't think I had any problem with gluten or dairy, but now I think I do. And that, I think, it catches up with you with age, obviously as your gut, we trash ourselves throughout life, and then
it really does.
Your body just goes, no more, can't handle it anymore, I'm going to break down now.
It really does. Yeah.
I was just going to say, if there's any attendees that want to start thinking about questions while we're discussing now, start listing your questions there. If there's something specific, we can answer in a general nature, and if there's, we might be able to help a little bit further.
There'll be things we forgot to mention too, which
so start asking your questions now and we'll bring them up. But what I wanted to ask is, let's say I've got some mild bloating. So there's a bit of gas and a little bloating, but it's frequent. I can sort of put up with it because I'm blokey or whatever. What are some of the things that is going to happen maybe to my immune system, or where can this lead? Like, can it be dangerous not to address the issue?
If you don't listen to your body when it's whispering at you, what's the shout going to be from bloating?
Yeah, what's some of the shout things, It's,
I feel that a lot can really exacerbate to immune conditions, like autoimmune conditions. 80% of your immune system's in the gut. But not only that, like 70% of your serotonin's also made in your gut. So it's definitely going to bring about some sort of, depression or anxiety is highly linked to the gut. And then that will display, more anxiety, more gut permeability. And then once your gut starts to become permeable, things start to get through the gut that have never been there before, and they activate your autoimmune. So, for example, talk about gluten, for example. If we start eating a high amount of gluten and they start to get through that wall, because it goes into the blood, and your immune system goes, oh my God, we need to attack that. So what the T helper cell does, it sort of chops off his head, then he puts it on a little stick, and then he goes to show his friends, and he goes, see this guy here? This is who you're going to attack, because he's trying to attack the body. So all of his mates go right, and they put on their army gear, and they go and attack the guy on the head, on the, like Braveheart, how they chop off heads. But then what looks like this guy on the head is your thyroid, or it looks like, your joints of your fingers. And this is where your body starts to attack it itself. And this is an autoimmune condition. So if you go to an immunologist, they're like, we got to dampen down the immune system, but the immune system's only doing what it was told to do, was go attack this guy. So, you know, if they just learn about where did this guy come from, it was the gut, it was a food intolerance in the first place. So that's what can really happen. And then you're in this whole, you've got to go see this specialist and then that specialist, you're on that medication. So you can start to see why they say gut is just the root cause of all diseases.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's a couple of attendees with some questions here now, and you can raise your hand, but we can't allow you to speak. You just need to type the Q&A. So there's a little thing down the bottom of your panel, guys, if you want to ask a question. But let's start with one here. Can too much alkaline water be a problem? You know,
I wouldn't be drinking alkaline water anywhere near when I wanted to digest. That would be my, I guess, definitely drink it when you're not wanting to digest, but I wouldn't be drinking it near meals.
Yeah, because you talked about that being acid.
Yeah, you want hydrochloric acid to be strong. Yeah.
So, would you answer the same there, Racheal?
Yeah, Jeanie, yeah, that's exactly it. Because you want it acidic. Remember, guys, you want that hot boiling pot. You only want lukewarm water. Try to even avoid heaps of water 20 minutes before and after food. Hydrochloric acid, get in and do it.
Alkaline foods, like we've been always told to have alkaline foods and stuff.
When they say alkaline, they're meaning pH of your blood. And so when we're going and peeing on all these sticks and going, oh, my blood's, my pee's acidic. Oh my God, I'm so acidic. Like, you want your pee to be acidic. Yeah. You know, you don't want down there to be alkaline. Yeah. So what they're referring to is the pH of your blood. And you can't really go and test that, you know. So there's that misunderstanding of being alkalized.
Yeah. And the alkaline water is nice because it's got some nice minerals in there. So definitely a healthy thing to get more minerals. Most of us are crazy mineral deficient. So good thing, but not with meals. I wouldn't be doing that.
So what I meant is, you know how there's more food. Some food is acidic. Some food is more alkaline type foods.
Alkaline forming or acid forming as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because, you know, there's so...
I guess if you're going to take some supplements with lots of alkaline minerals in there, probably not going to help too much with your hydrochloric acid, I wouldn't think, unless they're like, you know, they should be coated. Yeah, interesting question.
So, you know, it's like an example, lemon.
Lemon.
I eat lots and lots of lemon.
It's very acidic.
Very acidic, but it makes me alkaline. Yeah,
that's okay. I think
it could be confusing.
The whole acid alkaline thing. Very, very confusing for people. It can be really misleading too. I think lemons are acidic, and they'll eat your tooth enamel if you're sipping on lemon stuff all day. Be careful with that one. But they've got some good alkaline minerals in them as well. Yeah.
So further to that topic, that question: could that alkaline water, cause soft stools? Soft, I imagine, meaning quite mushy.
Let's just have a think. So if you've got lots and lots of water going in and making the hydrochloric acid not as strong, you won't get as great a digestion with your meals, causing bacterial stuff to happen further down. Yeah, it potentially could. May not be, but it definitely could contribute to that. I would experiment with not drinking it anywhere near meals and see if that makes a difference. May not be the cause, but it could contribute, I would think.
So we also had a question, that's a good answer, I think, just do a bit of testing and try with or without, see if that changes the form of the stool. What sort of advice would you give people suffering from bloating caused by lazy bowel?
That's huge. I think whenever you've got stuckness or stasis or stuff that's just not moving, like our gut when it's not moving as it should be, and we've got stuff sitting around for too long, that's when your microbes just tend to go nuts and just... there's lots and lots of fermentation happening and lots of gas produced. And I think when there's, you've got to get it moving. It's got to get moving. So things like exercise, so important. Getting into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest phase is really important for that. And you may need some specific things to help to get it moving as well. Like you might need to use some bitter herbs and some stimulants to get it moving so that you get it, everything, and also fasting.
It's very common because you want to really help with the peristalsis. So what I find that really helps is working on that vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is right here. And if you do more research on it, it's highly connected with the brain gut. So if we sort of start to, it's either wake up the vagus nerve because it starts to go down in activation as we grow up. One really good herb is cola on the vagus nerve can really, really help to really stimulate it. Iberogast, I don't know if you guys have heard it, but it's one actual herbal formula that GPs actually prescribe. Iberogast works directly on that vagus nerve, and acupuncture can work well because it's really about stimulating and waking up digestion, can really help.
Yeah, there's I've recently learned about the short chain fatty acid butyrate also helps with the peristalsis.
The motility.
Yeah, the motility.
Yeah.
So butyrate.
Yeah, so your gut microbes produce butyrate from the fermentation of fibre, and butyrate has an influence on the way the gut moves as well.
Yeah. Well, I've got a question from Dave. I like this question. We may have answered it, Dave, but we might dive into it a little bit more. Does alcohol, beer, cause bloating? Well, it does for me. It depends on the way you pour it. But let's say, even if I do a perfect pour and, obviously release a lot of that CO2, is there other things in beer that could cause bloating?
There's still bubbles in there. Bubbly stuff does definitely cause bloating. And alcohol in general does cause inflammation and irritation of the gut. So, sorry.
So, all right.
But I mean, like moderation, it can also cause you to go into that rest and digest, chill you out a little bit. So potentially, I don't want to be the baddie saying you can never drink beer ever again.
So we got another question here. I'll swing this one over to you, Racheal. And it's, how do we manage unwelcome flatulence that often accompanies bloating? I don't eat quickly. I avoid gas-producing foods. Help. So unwelcome flatulence. For me, that's a release a lot of the times.
Well, flatulence is welcome when it's building up and it's making you uncomfortable, and you're just like, oh, okay, I feel better now. However, if you're in the middle of a yoga class, or if you're in the office, or it's got to be
or smelly.
Yeah. So I guess it's unwelcome if it's excessively smelly. I mean, you can fart, and if it doesn't stink, you can fart in yoga, or you can fart in the office.
So I guess what they're trying to ask you is how to manage that flatulence.
Yeah. If you're not having, I guess what would call the gassy food, so to say, like I'll look a little bit deeper into that, because there's actually food that you are intolerant to because you're getting gassy. So I'd be working into more of your diet, maybe keeping a food diary, because food diary is fantastic, because you might go, it was actually that egg, because there's different, like fibers and things and different eggs that can cause the bloating. If I do it to my partner, if he gets a sore belly, I actually give him a massage. Can be really soothing. So you've got to go clockwise or that way. Down around the bowel. And that can really relieve it. Yeah. Doing a massage is fantastic. And that's what our ancestors do. Like, I remember my grandma doing it to me, and that can really start to get whatever's stuck there. There might be something that's just stuck in a little pocket. Because there's like meters and meters of your bowel. And it could be just one random pocket of still being there.
Yeah, moving it. I can imagine that would help.
Exercise is huge.
Yeah.
Moving helps so much with the movement of food and the movement of gases and the untrapping of things that are stuck.
So we've got another question here around about with regard to slippery elm. And, is it used for bloating, or, can it cause soft stools? So specifically slippery elm? Because I obviously people, if they're constipated, I think that's...
Yeah, slippery elm's beautiful and mucilaginous. So mucilage, that really soothing, and like it's a very slimy kind of feel. If you get some oats or some chia or some flax seeds and you can feel it between your fingers, that sliminess. Yeah. Slippery elm's like that, so it helps with... soothing and healing, creating a bit of a barrier between, helps with the mucous membranes in the gut. But what was the question? Slippery elm usually used for soft stools. Yeah, well, if the soft stools are caused by some inflammatory stuff, which is often the case if you've got inflammation or irritation going on in the gut. Slippery Elm Beautiful to help dampen down or provide a barrier to allow that healing to happen. What else would you add, Racheal? That's mine.
It's more of a loose, it's mucilagenic, so it's really anti-inflammatory. I love it in smoothies. It can really support.
Oh, we've
paused.
Rachel's paused there for a second. So I think what she was going to say, she was going to use it in smoothies. She might reconnect. There might be just a bit of an issue with her connection at her end. But yeah, we've got another question. We might come back to that.
Yeah.
What the next question was, how much apple cider vinegar per day? Is there a dosage recommendation? I actually don't know if there is
Everyone has gone apple cider vinegar crazy. I think we can get too much of a good thing. Back before apple cider vinegar was the crazy health trend that it is today, it was always recommended, let's just have a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar just before our meals that we know might cause us some trouble with digestion. And yeah, I don't really know the answer. How much can you have per day? And for it to be, I'll have to research that. Whereas, I guess the difference between a poison and a medicine is just in the dose. I mean, you can have too much of something that's really good for you and it can kill you if you have too much of it. So I actually don't really know with apple cider vinegar, what is the...
I often, this is what I do, just have a little splash in some cold water, and then I just sort of have that, post meal times. Probably after today's discussion, I might try it pre-meal times.
Yeah, I just have it in a tiny bit of water, just
a little bit
before you meal.
I guess always with anything, start slow, maybe build yourself up to it. You listen to your body and, sort of work it from there. If you find that sort of sweet spot where you feel better.
I mean, let's not go nuts with anything. If your body will soon tell you, it'll probably say, oh, I've had enough of that apple cider vinegar, no more.
So look, doesn't seem to be any more questions, but what we're going to do is, guys, we've lost Racheal, but
we've lost her.
Yeah, if you want to find more about Racheal, Thrive Natural Health is her website. So Google Thrive Natural Health. Racheal Lee, she's Brisbane-based. She does a lot of Skype consults. And I know she's offering a special. If anyone wants to go into a little bit of deep dive and find out a little bit more, reach out to Racheal via her website. Mention there that you were part of the Eat, Play, Poo webinar, or you've watched the recording, and yeah, she'll look after you there. It was excellent to have Racheal.
Very good, yeah. And I can't emphasize enough, if you are struggling with any health problem, you're going to get much better results if you do book a consultation with someone than just trying to find the answers yourself. It's so beneficial to get a full case history taken and get any testing that needs to be done, rather than trying to do it yourself.
So this webinar, if you're watching it now recorded, you might be able to leave a comment below on YouTube or on the Facebook Live group. We have Eat, Play, Poo. So those guys who are on the webinar who aren't in that group, we've got Jeanie, Racheal, and a number of, I guess, holistic health practitioners there that they're just trying to help, right? Everyone's a little different and has a different experience. It's a little community there that we're not trying to...
We just want to open up the conversation and get people helping each other.
So the only way to do that is an invitation only or request. So you'll find that on the goodMix main page, or if you search in Facebook, Eat, Play, Poo, and your request to join will be answered. So that's it for this episode. Guys, we love feedback. If you've guys got any topics that you'd love a particular special guest, somewhere we can go into a deep dive, you might be able to recommend someone for the show.
Just got a quick list of good things that we didn't run through. Really quickly, if you're feeling bloated right now, you can make yourself a double strength ginger and peppermint tea. That's an awesome, just a quick fix. Beautiful herbs to help get everything moving through. So that's a nice easy one, ginger and peppermint. What else did we not mention? The chewing, yeah, that's probably the main one. Yeah, magnesium, you can incorporate the magnesium into this spray into your abdominal massage as well. Antispasmodic is a good one as well. Magnesium can help you with constipation too. The right type of magnesium taken internally can help to move things through, stop that buildup of gases forming behind any stuck poos.
Cool.
Just some little tips there.
So if there's any more, what we'll do is this video will be posted. It'll be on demand. You can rewatch it again. But if you want to have specific questions in the Eat, Play, Crew group, the Eat, Play, Poo group, you can actually type a question in there, direct it to Jeanie or Racheal, and they'll be monitoring that, especially over the next 24, 48 hours. But you can ask any time that you watch this. You might be watching this post the date. Today's the 14th of March, 2019. You might be watching it months down the track. Pop your question in there. It'll ping one of the girls to give you an answer, and they might invite you to, to have a consult with Racheal, for example.
And contributions as well. If you've got any experience or any tips that you know has worked beautifully for you or your clients, if you're a practitioner, jump in there and share everything that you can contribute with as well.
All right, guys, that's it for us. Once again, thank you to Racheal Lee from Thrive Natural Health. You find her, Google her website and contact her. Jeanie, thanks. I've learned something really, really cool. And
no more beer. No.
The way I pour it. Thanks again, guys. It's been a pleasure. And we hope to see you again in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.